When I came back from my trip, something felt wrong before I even turned off the engine. It wasn't just a feeling. It was the kind of quiet, heavy instinct that settles in your chest before your mind catches up. The street looked the same cracked sidewalk, same maple tree leaning slightly to the left, but my house had a moving truck parked right in front of it. A large, white truck. The kind that doesn't belong unless someone is leaving or being forced to. I sat there in my car longer than I should have, my hands still gripping the steering wheel. I told myself there had to be a simple explanation. Maybe someone was helping a neighbor. Maybe I was overthinking it. After all, I had just returned from 2 exhausting months away. I had been staying with my cousin in Arizona, helping her recover after surgery. Long days, sleepless nights, constant worry. All I had thought about during that time was coming back home, back to my space, my routine, my life. And now this. I turned off the engine slowly. Before I could even open the door, my front door swung open, and out walked my son, Daniel. He was carrying a box. Behind him came his girlfriend, Chloe, holding something wrapped in a blanket. I recognized it immediately. It was my porcelain set. The one I had kept for decades. The one I never let anyone touch without asking. Daniel? I called out, stepping out of the car. He looked at me, and for a second, just a second, I expected surprise. Guilt. Something. But there was nothing. Just a calm, almost rehearsed expression. Mom, he said, you're back. I walked closer, my heart already racing. What is going on? I asked. He set the box down on the ramp of the truck like we were discussing groceries, not my life. We need to talk. Those 4 words. People say them like they mean something gentle, like they're trying to prepare you, but they never do. I looked past him, into the house. I could see more boxes inside. Furniture moved. Things missing. Why is there a moving truck at my house? I asked, my voice shaking despite my effort to stay calm. Chloe stepped forward then, smiling in that way people do when they think they're being kind, but aren't. Mia, we've made some decisions, she said softly. My stomach dropped. We found a place for you, Daniel added quickly. A place? I repeated. A care facility. It's really nice. Quiet, safe, professional staff. You'll be more comfortable there. For a moment, I didn't understand the words. They didn't fit together. A care facility? I said slowly. You mean a nursing home? Yes, Chloe said. It's for the best. I laughed. I actually laughed. Because it was ridiculous. I don't need a nursing home, I said. I take care of myself just fine. Daniel sighed like I was being difficult. Mom, you're 68. You live alone. You were gone for 2 months. Anything could have happened. I was helping family, I snapped. You knew exactly where I was. That's not the point, Chloe said gently. At your age, living alone just isn't safe anymore. At your age. Those words hit harder than anything else. I looked at Daniel, really looked at him. The boy I raised. The one I stayed up all night with when he had fevers. The one I worked double shifts for so he could go to college. This is my house, I said quietly. I've lived here for over 40 years. He nodded, like he was acknowledging something small. And we appreciate that, he said. But we need the space now. The words didn't make sense. Space for what? Chloe smiled again, this time with excitement. We got a dog. I blinked. A dog? A German Shepherd, she said proudly. His name is Rex. He's going to be big, so he needs a yard.
Ich zerrte her.
Then at Daniel. Then back at the house. You're sending me to a nursing home for a dog? It's not just about the dog, Daniel said quickly, but he wouldn't meet my eyes now. This house is too much for you anyway. The stairs, the maintenance, it's not practical. I've been managing just fine, I said. I have neighbors. I hire help when I need it. Exactly, Chloe said. You need help. Something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like something old finally giving way. I turned and looked at my house, the porch where I drank my morning coffee, the window where I used to sit and read, the walls that held every memory I had left. When did you plan this? I asked. Daniel hesitated. While you were away. Of course. Of course they did. You went through my things? I asked. We packed what you'll need, Chloe said. Don't worry, everything important is taken care of. I walked toward the truck. Boxes. My life, reduced to boxes. Some labeled, some not. I opened one. Kitchen utensils. Mixed with random items. Careless. Thoughtless. Where are my photo albums? I asked. Silence. My jewelry? My documents? My mother's things? You won't have space for everything, Daniel said. The room there is smaller.
Room.
Not home. Room. When do I have to leave? I whispered. Chloe didn't hesitate.
Today.
Everything is already arranged. I stood there in my own driveway, feeling like a stranger, like I had already disappeared. Can I at least see the dog? I asked, not even sure why. Chloe smiled brightly. He's at grooming today. Of course he was. Of course the dog had better treatment than I did. As they continued loading the last of my belongings, I realized something I had been refusing to accept. My son wasn't confused. He wasn't making a mistake. He had chosen this. Chosen the house. Chosen convenience. Chosen everything except me. And somehow, I had never seen it coming. The ride to the facility felt longer than it actually was, like time itself had decided to stretch just to make sure I fully understood what was happening to me. I sat in the back seat of Daniel's car, my suitcase beside me, my hands folded in my lap like I was a passenger in my own life. No one spoke much. Chloe occasionally checked her phone. Daniel kept his eyes on the road, and I stared out the window as the familiar streets slowly disappeared behind us. Every turn felt final. Every mile felt like something was being taken away that I would never get back. When we finally arrived, the building looked exactly like I imagined it would. Clean, quiet, and lifeless in a way that tried too hard not to be. A large sign stood near the entrance with a soft, comforting name that meant nothing to me. There were flowers planted outside, neatly arranged, as if decoration could replace dignity. A nurse greeted us at the door with a practiced smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Welcome," she said, looking at me, not at Daniel. "You must be Mia." Must be. Like I had already been transferred into a file, a room number, a responsibility. They led me inside. The air smelled like disinfectant and something faintly sweet, like artificial vanilla meant to hide something deeper. The floors were polished, the walls lined with framed pictures of landscapes that no one really looked at. A few residents sat in the common area, some watching television, others simply staring ahead. I wondered how many of them had arrived the same way I had. "This will be your room," the nurse said, opening a door.
Room.
Not home. Inside, there were 2 beds. One was empty. The other had a neatly folded blanket and a small suitcase beside it. A narrow window overlooked a parking lot. No trees, no life, just rows of cars and painted lines. Daniel set my suitcase down. "Well," he said, clapping his hands once, like he was finishing a chore. "This is it." I turned to him. "That's it?" I asked. He shifted slightly, uncomfortable for the first time. "It's a good place, Mom. You'll be safe here." Safe. I nodded slowly. Chloe stepped forward and gave me a quick, careful hug, like she didn't want to wrinkle her clothes.
"We'll visit," she said.
I didn't believe her. They didn't stay long after that. A few more empty words, a few more forced smiles, and then they were gone. I watched them walk down the hallway until they disappeared, and something inside me sank deeper than I thought possible. I stood there in the middle of that small room, surrounded by things that were supposed to represent my life, and realized I had never felt more alone. The first few days blurred together. Meals arrived on a schedule, tasteless and predictable. People spoke to me kindly, but not meaningfully. Everything was structured, controlled, managed. It wasn't living. It was existing. I didn't unpack most of my things. What was the point? I spent hours lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind. The truck, the boxes, Daniel's voice, Chloe's smile, the word room, echoing louder than anything else. Sometimes I wondered if I had missed something.
A sign.
A moment where things could have gone differently. But no matter how many times I went over it, the ending was always the same. I had been replaced, not by another person, but by convenience. On the third day, someone knocked lightly on the door before walking in. She didn't wait for permission. She was about my age, maybe a little older, with sharp eyes and a posture that suggested she wasn't used to being told what to do. Her hair was tied back neatly, and she carried herself with a kind of quiet authority. "Well," she said, glancing around the room, "I suppose we're sharing." I sat up slightly. "I guess so," I replied. She set her suitcase on the empty bed and looked at me more closely. "You've been crying," she said, not unkindly. I didn't answer. She nodded, like that was confirmation enough. "I'm Evelyn," she said.
Mia.
She began unpacking immediately, her movements precise, organized. Clothes folded, items placed carefully, everything done with purpose. It was strange to watch someone act so normal in a place that felt anything but. After a few minutes, she spoke again. "Let me guess," she said. "Family decision." I let out a quiet breath. "My son," I said. "He put me here. Took my house." Evelyn paused for just a second, then continued unpacking. "Ah," she said. "That kind of story." I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" She turned to face me. "I mean," she said, "you're not the first person I've met who ended up here because someone else decided it was convenient." There was something in her tone. Not sympathy. Not pity. Understanding. "I don't need to be here," I said, more firmly this time. "I was living on my own just fine." "Of course you were," she replied. That surprised me. "You believe me?" She gave me a look. "I don't deal in assumptions," she said. "I deal in facts. And the fact that you're questioning it already tells me everything I need to know." I watched her for a moment. "What about you?" I asked. "Why are you here?" She smiled slightly, but there was no warmth in it. "My son decided I was becoming difficult," she said. "Apparently asking questions about finances makes me a problem."
Finance.
"My late husband had a life insurance policy," she said calmly. "A significant one. After he passed, the numbers didn't add up. When I started asking for details, suddenly, I was confused and in need of care."
Ist certa her.
"You think they lied?" "I don't think," she said. "I know." There was a silence between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy. "You ever think about leaving?" I asked quietly. Evelyn stopped what she was doing and looked at me directly. "Leaving," she repeated. "Yes. Just walking out." She studied me for a long moment, then sat down on her bed. "Mia," she said, "do you know why places like this work?" I shook my head. "Because people believe they're supposed to stay," she said. "They believe someone else made the decision for a reason. They stop questioning it." I swallowed. "But what if they're right?" I asked. "What if I can't manage anymore?" She leaned forward slightly. "Did you manage before?" she asked. "Yes." Did you take care of yourself? Yes. Did you take care of others? I thought about my trip, about the long days, the responsibility, the exhaustion. Yes, I said. Then nothing has changed, she said simply. Except what someone told you. Her words settled into me slowly, like something waking up. I don't know where I'd go, I admitted. Evelyn nodded. That's the first real problem you've mentioned, she said. Not whether you can live your life, but where. I looked down at my hands. My house, I said quietly. That's where I'd go. But it's not mine anymore. Evelyn's expression sharpened. Is your name on the deed? She asked. Yes. Then it's still yours. But my son has no legal right to take it without your consent, she interrupted. Family doesn't override ownership. I looked up at her, something unfamiliar stirring in my chest.
Hope.
You really think I can get it back? I asked. She didn't hesitate. I don't think, she said again. I know you can. For the first time since I arrived, I sat up straighter. For the first time, the room didn't feel quite as small. For the first time, I didn't feel completely powerless. Evelyn leaned back slightly, watching me carefully. So, she said, the real question is, are you ready to stop being the victim in your own story? I didn't answer right away. But for the first time, since that moving truck appeared in my driveway, I was actually thinking about it. The next morning felt different, even before I fully opened my eyes. Nothing around me had changed. The same narrow bed, the same pale walls, the same quiet hum of a place designed to keep people contained. But something inside me had shifted. Evelyn's words from the night before refused to leave my mind. They weren't loud or dramatic, but they were steady, like a voice that had always been there, and I had just started listening to it. I sat up slowly, looking around the room again, but this time I didn't see a final destination. I saw a temporary stop, and that alone changed everything. Evelyn was already awake, dressed, and organized as if she had a plan for the day. She glanced at me briefly and nodded, like she already knew I hadn't slept much. Good, she said. Good what? I asked. You're thinking, she replied. I can tell. I swung my legs off the bed, feeling a strange mix of fear and determination. What do we do? I asked. She didn't smile, but there was something approving in her expression. We find out what your son has been doing with your house, she said. Facts first, emotions later. Within an hour, we were downstairs in the administrative office. The young receptionist looked slightly confused as Evelyn approached with complete confidence, as if she owned the building. We need access to a computer, she said calmly. The receptionist hesitated. I'm not sure residents are allowed. We're not asking for permission, Evelyn interrupted gently but firmly. We're asking for access to public information. That's not the same thing. There was something about her tone that made it difficult to argue. After a brief moment of uncertainty, the receptionist nodded and stepped aside. I watched, almost in disbelief, as Evelyn sat down and began typing with practiced precision. Within minutes, she had pulled up property records. Address? She asked. I gave it to her. My heart started pounding as the page loaded. There it was. My home, still listed under my name. I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. It's still yours, Evelyn said without looking at me. Legally, nothing has changed. But then she clicked further, scrolling through additional records, and her expression shifted slightly. That's interesting, she murmured. What? I asked. She turned the screen slightly, so I could see the estimated value of my house. It was far higher than I remembered. Has your neighborhood changed recently? She asked. I guess so, I said. New families, renovations. I never really paid attention. You should have, she said quietly. Because your house is worth significantly more than you think. I stared at the number. It didn't feel real. To me, it had never been about money. It had been about memories, stability, a place where I belonged. But to someone else, it was something else entirely. Evelyn leaned back slightly. Now we ask the important question, she said. If your son knew this, why would he wait for inheritance when he could benefit from it now? A cold feeling spread through me. You think this was planned? I asked. I think people rarely act without motive, she replied. She opened another page, this time searching local listings. It took her less than 5 minutes to find it. And when she did, everything inside me went still. A rental listing. My address. I leaned closer, my eyes scanning the details. 3-bedroom home. Large yard. Quiet neighborhood.
My home.
$2,000 per room. Per room. I felt my chest tighten.
No, iwis para.
Evelyn didn't say anything at first. She didn't need to. He's renting it out, I said slowly. He's making money from it. At least 3 rooms from what I can see, she said. Possibly more. I tried to do the math in my head, but it came too fast, too heavy. Thousands of dollars. Every month. For my house. While I was sitting in a small room, eating food I didn't want, living a life I didn't choose. He told people I didn't want to come back. I said, remembering suddenly, that I was happy here. Evelyn nodded. That makes it easier, she said. If no one questions it, he controls the narrative. My hands started shaking. Call someone you trust, she said. I don't. I began, then stopped. Mrs. Carter. My neighbor. I hadn't spoken to her since I left. Evelyn handed me the phone without another word. It rang twice before she answered. Mia, her voice came through, surprised but warm. Is that really you? Tears filled my eyes instantly. Yes, I said. It's me. We spoke for a few minutes, catching up just enough to bridge the gap, but I quickly moved to the question that mattered. Have you noticed anything unusual at my house? I asked carefully. There was a pause. Well, she said slowly, there's been a lot of people coming and going. My heart sank. What kind of people? Young, mostly. Different ones. I thought maybe your son had guests staying, but it's been constant. I closed my eyes. And Daniel? I asked. He told me you weren't coming back, she said gently. Said you preferred being in assisted living. The words hit harder the second time. After I hung up, the silence in the room felt heavier than before. He lied to everyone, I said. Yes, Evelyn replied. And he counted on you not finding out. I sat there trying to process it all. The truck, the rush, the decision made while I was away, the facility, the lies. It all fit together now. Not as concern, not as care, but as a plan. I trusted him, I said quietly. Evelyn's voice softened slightly, but only slightly. That's what made it easy, she said. I looked up at her. So, what do I do now? She leaned forward, her eyes sharp again. Now, she said, you stop letting him decide what happens next. The words settled into me, heavy but solid. For the first time since this started, she continued, you have information, and information is power. I nodded slowly. But I'm here, I said. And he's there.
For now, she said.
I frowned. What do you mean? She held my gaze. You're not here because you have to be, she said. You're here because you were told to be. The realization hit me all at once. I hadn't been forced. There was no legal order, no medical requirement, just pressure, manipulation. You can leave, she said. The words felt almost. Within an hour, we were back downstairs, this time not asking for a computer, but for my file. The same receptionist looked even more uncertain than before, but Evelyn's presence had a way of cutting through hesitation like a knife through paper. There was no aggression in her tone, no raised voice, just certainty. After a few minutes of quiet discussion and a call to a supervisor, they handed over a folder. My folder. I sat down as Evelyn flipped through it quickly, her eyes scanning line after line. No court order, she said. No medical declaration of incapacity.
No guardianship.
She looked up at me. You admitted yourself, she said. No, I said immediately. Daniel arranged everything. Yes, she said calmly, but you agreed. That's all it takes. The words hit differently than I expected. I wasn't trapped. I had walked in, which meant I could walk out. So I can leave? I asked again, needing to hear it one more time. You can leave right now, she said.
Right now.
The room felt smaller suddenly, like it had been holding me in and now couldn't anymore. I didn't pack carefully. I didn't organize or sort through anything. I just took what I had and put it back into the suitcase Daniel had brought me in. Clothes, a few personal items, things that barely represented my life. But they were enough. The rest, I told myself, was still mine. It was still in that house. I'm coming with you, Evelyn said as I zipped the suitcase. I looked at her. What about your situation? She shrugged lightly.
It can wait, she said.
Right now, yours is more urgent. There was something about the way she said it that made me realize she had already decided. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was facing something alone. We checked out at the front desk like we were leaving a hotel. No resistance, no questions, just paperwork and polite smiles. It was almost insulting how easy it was. After everything I had felt, everything I had believed, walking out took less than 10 minutes. Outside, the air felt different, sharper.
Real.
I took a deep breath, letting it fill my lungs like I had been underwater and had just surfaced. Now what? I asked. Now we make this official, Evelyn said. She made a call right there in the parking lot. Her tone shifted slightly, not softer, but more precise, more calculated. Yes, it's Evelyn, she said. I need a consultation. Property dispute.
Urgent.
She listened for a moment, then nodded. Good. We'll be there in an hour. When she hung up, she looked at me. We're going to see someone who knows exactly how to deal with this, she said. The drive felt nothing like the one that had brought me to the facility. That one had been quiet, heavy, final. This one was tense, but alive. My thoughts moved faster than I could organize them. Anger, disbelief, determination, all tangled together. When we arrived, the office was modest but professional. Inside, a man in his 50s greeted us with a firm handshake and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Evelyn explained everything with remarkable clarity. No wasted words, no emotional distractions, just facts. My friend owns the property, she said. Her son removed her without legal authority and is currently occupying and profiting from it. The man nodded slowly, turning to me. Is that accurate? He asked. Yes, I said. Then you have a strong case, he said without hesitation. Those words hit me harder than anything else that day. A strong case. Not a misunderstanding. Not a family issue. A case. He has no right to rent out your property, he continued. And if he's doing so without your consent, that opens him up to serious legal consequences. What do I need to do? I asked. He slid a document across the table. We start with a formal notice, he said, demanding that he vacate the property and cease all rental activity immediately. And if he refuses? The man's expression didn't change. Then we escalate, he said. Legally. I signed the paper with a hand that trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what it meant. This wasn't just about getting my house back anymore. It was about drawing a line that should have never been crossed. By the time we left the office, everything was in motion. "There's one more thing you need to see," Evelyn said as we got into the car. "What?" "Your house," she said. My stomach tightened. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." "You are," she said. The drive there felt shorter than I remembered, but every second stretched in its own way. When we turned onto my street, my heart started pounding so loudly I could hear it.
And then I saw it.
My house. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. Cars were parked everywhere, driveway, street, even partly on the grass. More than I had ever seen there before. The front yard looked different, less cared for, less loved. We didn't get out immediately. We just sat there, watching. The front door opened. A young man walked out, carrying a bag of laundry. He didn't look around. He didn't hesitate. He walked like he belonged there. Then another person came out. And another. My chest tightened. "How many people are living there?" I whispered. "More than there should be," Evelyn said quietly. I stared at the house, trying to match what I was seeing with what I remembered. The porch where I used to sit. The window where the sunlight used to fall just right in the afternoon. Now it looked used. Not lived in. Used. Like something temporary. Like something disposable. "This is what he did," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn didn't respond. She didn't need to. I kept watching. Then I saw something that made my stomach turn. In the front yard, tied to a post, was a dog. Large.
Strong.
Restless. The German Shepherd. Rex. The reason they had given me. The justification. The excuse. And there he was.
Chained.
Not running. Not free. Just there. All of it hit me at once. The lies. The manipulation. The choices. It had never been about the dog. It had never been about my safety. It had been about control. About money. About taking something that wasn't theirs. I opened the car door and stepped out before I even realized I had made the decision. Evelyn followed without a word. I stood there looking at my house, not as a memory, not as something lost, but as something that was still mine. Something I was going to take back. No matter what it cost. That night, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was afraid anymore, but because my mind refused to slow down. Everything I had seen that afternoon kept replaying over and over again. The strangers walking in and out of my house, the cars crowding the driveway, the yard that no longer looked like mine, and most of all, the dog.
Chained.
Restless. Reduced to something almost symbolic of everything that had gone wrong.
It was never about him.
It was about what he represented, a convenient excuse for something far uglier. By morning, I wasn't unsure anymore. I wasn't hesitant. I wasn't even sad in the way I had been before. I was clear, and that clarity felt sharper than anything else. My phone rang just as I was finishing a cup of coffee in the small hotel room Evelyn had insisted we stay in. I didn't need to look at the screen to know who it was. Daniel. For a second, I just stared at the phone, letting it ring. A part of me, the old part, wanted to ignore it, to avoid the confrontation, to pretend things would somehow fix themselves. But that part had already cost me too much. I answered. "Hello. Mia, what is this?" His voice came out fast, tense, already defensive. "I just got served papers. What are you doing?" I leaned back slightly, steadying myself. "I'm taking back my house," I said. There was a short, disbelieving laugh on the other end. "You can't be serious. You're in a care facility. You don't even need that house anymore." "I'm not in that facility anymore," I replied calmly. "I left yesterday." Silence.
Then his tone changed.
"What do you mean you left?" he asked. "You can't just leave like that. It's not safe." "I've been taking care of myself for decades," I said. "I think I can manage." There was a pause, and I could almost hear his thoughts racing, recalculating. Where are you staying? He asked. That doesn't concern you. It does if you're making decisions like this, he snapped. You don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me, I said. Another pause. Then he sighed heavily, like he was preparing a speech he had already practiced in his head. The house needed work, he said. Repairs, maintenance. It wasn't in good condition. We stepped in to handle it. I closed my eyes for a second, letting the lie settle before responding. I had the roof fixed 2 years ago, I said. And the heating system serviced before I left. Well, there were other issues, he said quickly. And the renters are helping cover the costs. We're not doing anything wrong. The renters, I repeated. You mean the people paying you thousands of dollars to live in my house? It's not like that, he said, his voice rising slightly. We needed the income. There it was. Not concern. Not safety.
Need.
For what? I asked quietly. For everything, he said. Chloe lost her job. My hours got cut. Bills keep piling up. You have no idea how expensive things are right now. For a moment, I felt something I hadn't expected. Sympathy. Because I knew what it was like to struggle. I had spent years balancing bills, sacrificing, doing whatever it took to keep things together. But then I remembered the moving truck. The way they spoke to me. The way they decided for me. You had options, I said. You could have asked for help. We did what we had to do, he said sharply. You did what was easiest, I corrected. There was a long silence after that. Then his voice dropped, quieter now, but harder. You're overreacting, he said. You're my mother. That house is going to be mine eventually, anyway. The words hit like a physical jar. Eventually. As if I'm already gone, I said slowly. That's not what I meant, he said, but there was no conviction behind it. It's exactly what you meant, I replied. You just didn't expect me to still be here to hear it. He exhaled sharply. Look, we can fix this, he said. You can come back. We'll figure something out. Figure what out? We'll make space for you. Make space. In my own house. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. You mean I'll live as a guest in my own home? I asked. It's temporary, he said quickly. The renters have agreements. We can't just kick them out. The clarity I had felt earlier sharpened even further. Even now, even after everything, he still didn't see it. He still thought I would accept less than what was mine. Daniel, I said quietly, do you actually hear yourself? I'm trying to be reasonable, he insisted. No, I said. You're trying to keep what you took. That was the moment something broke. Not inside me. Between us. Fine, he snapped. If you want to do this the hard way, go ahead. But don't expect this to end well. It already hasn't, I said. Before he could respond, I ended the call. The silence that followed felt different. Not empty. Resolved. Evelyn, who had been sitting across from me the entire time, watching quietly, finally spoke. He's not going to give up easily, she said. I know, I replied. And he's going to try everything, guilt, pressure, maybe even legal tricks. I know, I repeated. She studied me for a moment. But you're not backing down, she said. It wasn't a question. No, I said. Later that day, we went back to the house again, but this time, not just to watch. This time, to document. Every car, every person, every sign that my home had been turned into something it was never meant to be. The lawyer had told us to gather everything we could. So we did. At one point, one of the tenants noticed us and walked over. Can I help you? He asked, clearly confused. I looked at him. You're living here? I asked. Yeah, he said. Renting a room. From who? Daniel, he said. Why? I held his gaze. Because this is my house. The confusion on his face shifted instantly. Oh, I didn't know, he said quickly. He told us it was his.
Of course he did. It's not, I said.
And it won't be. We left shortly after that, but something had changed again. Not just in me. In the situation itself. The truth was no longer hidden. It was visible.
Real.
And unstoppable. That evening, as I sat in the hotel room again, I realized something I hadn't fully understood before. This wasn't just about getting my house back.
It was about drawing a line.
About saying, clearly and without hesitation, enough. No more decisions made for me. No more silence. No more being treated like I was already gone. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. Not because things were over, but because I finally knew exactly where I stood. And I wasn't moving from it. The 30 days passed slower than I expected, but also faster in a strange, unsettling way. Each morning felt heavy with anticipation, and each night carried the quiet question of what would happen next. Daniel didn't call as often after that first week. When he did, I didn't answer. Not out of anger anymore, but because there was nothing left to say that hadn't already been made painfully clear. The rest of the communication went through the lawyer, just as Evelyn insisted it should. Everything became formal, documented, undeniable. It was no longer a family disagreement. It was a legal reality. By the second week, I started noticing something else, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Not over everything, not over the past, but over my decisions. Over my direction. Over myself. For weeks, I had been reacting, adjusting, surviving. Now, I was choosing. Daniel, on the other hand, was running out of options. According to the lawyer, he tried everything. First, he attempted to delay the process, claiming there were agreements with the tenants that needed time to resolve. Then, he tried to argue that he had been managing the property in my best interest. That didn't hold up for long. There was no legal authority, no signed permission, nothing that justified what he had done. After that, the messages shifted. Less confident, more desperate. Requests to talk things out, suggestions that we could find a compromise, even vague hints that taking this further would damage the family. That word, family, felt hollow now. Not because I didn't understand it anymore, but because I finally did. Family wasn't supposed to feel like this. By the third week, the calls stopped completely. Silence replaced them. And strangely, that silence didn't hurt. It relieved. On the 29th day, I received a message from an unknown number. Your things are outside. That was it.
No apology. No explanation.
Just a sentence. Evelyn read it over my shoulder and let out a quiet breath. Well, she said, looks like he finally understands the situation. The next day, we drove back to the house. This time, we didn't stop across the street. This time, we pulled into the driveway. My driveway. It looked different without the extra cars. Empty, almost unfamiliar, like something that had been disturbed and was only now settling back into place. The front yard still showed signs of neglect, the grass uneven, the edges rough, but it was quieter. Still, my things were piled on the porch. Boxes. Furniture. Pieces of my life stacked carelessly together, as if they had been removed in a hurry, without thought or care. I stepped out of the car slowly, my eyes scanning everything, trying to take it in without letting it overwhelm me.
Mia.
I turned at the sound of my name. Mrs. Carter was already walking toward me, her expression a mix of relief and concern. I was hoping you'd come back, she said, pulling me into a quick embrace. I knew something wasn't right. I'm back, I said, and for the first time, the words felt solid.
Real.
Evelyn had already started going through the boxes, opening them one by one, checking contents, making notes. I joined her, kneeling down and lifting the lid of one of the containers. Kitchen items. Mixed together. Some broken. Some missing. I moved to another box. Photos. Carelessly thrown in. Edges bent. Frames cracked. I picked one up slowly. It was an old picture. Me and Daniel. He couldn't have been more than 6. We were standing in the yard, both smiling, both looking like we belonged to each other completely. I stared at it for a long moment before placing it back in the box. Not because it didn't matter, but because I couldn't let it stop me. Inside the house, the damage was worse. The moment I stepped through the door, I felt it. Not just saw it. Felt it. The air was different. The energy. The sense of something that had been disturbed, disrespected. The floors were scratched. The walls marked. Furniture missing. In the living room, someone had rearranged everything. What used to feel warm and familiar now felt temporary, like a space that had been used but never cared for. The kitchen looked worse. Burn marks, stains, things left behind without attention. And then I walked into my bedroom, or what used to be my bedroom. 3 beds. 3. Crammed into a space that had once been mine alone. I stood there, unable to move for a moment. This wasn't just about money. This wasn't just about space. This was about erasing me. Room by room, I walked through what used to be my life. The sewing room was empty, completely stripped.
Shelves bara. Machine gone.
Years of quiet work, of memory, of meaning. Gone like it had never existed. I sat down slowly in what remained of the living room. The anger came then. Not explosive, not loud, but deep, steady. Evelyn sat beside me. "We'll fix it," she said. I nodded, not because I believed it would be easy, but because I believed it was possible. And that was enough. The legal process moved quickly after that. The documentation we had gathered, the condition of the house, the missing items, it all added up to something undeniable. Daniel had crossed a line he couldn't walk back from. The settlement took time, but the outcome was clear. He would pay for the damages, replace what was missing, cover the costs of repairs. There was no negotiation left to be done. I didn't speak to him during that time. Not once. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally understood something important. Closure doesn't always come from conversation. Sometimes it comes from action. The repairs took months. Floors restored, walls repainted, rooms rebuilt piece by piece. It wasn't just fixing damage, it was reclaiming space, reclaiming identity, reclaiming something that had been taken, not given. Evelyn stayed close through all of it. Not as a visitor, not as someone passing through, but as someone who had chosen to stand beside me when it mattered. "You know," she said one evening as we sat on the porch, "most people wouldn't have fought back like you did." I looked out at the yard. "I didn't feel strong," I said. "You don't have to feel strong," she replied. "You just have to decide not to stay down." When the house was finally ready, the day I moved back and felt quieter than I expected. No big moment. No dramatic return. Just a key.
A door. And a choice.
I stepped inside slowly, taking in the space.
Clean.
Restored. Familiar again, but different in a way I couldn't fully explain. Not because the house had changed, but because I had. This time, I wasn't just living here. I had chosen it. That night, I sat in the living room, the same place I had sat hundreds of times before, but it felt new. Not because of the furniture or the repairs, but because of what it meant. I wasn't someone who had been left behind. I wasn't someone who had been replaced. I was someone who had been tested and had answered. My phone buzzed softly on the table beside me. I looked at the screen. Daniel. For a moment, I just stared at it. Then I reached over and turned the phone off. Not in anger, not in pain,
but in peace.
Some things don't need to be reopened. Some lines, once crossed, don't need to be redrawn. Outside, the evening settled gently over the neighborhood. The air was calm, the light soft, the world moving forward without asking permission. I leaned back in my chair, letting the quiet settle around me. I was home, not just in a place, but in myself. And this time, I wasn't going anywhere.